Hello there, everybody. This is Alex from Hardcoring Guides, bringing you my new guide for Transformers Devastation on Prime difficulty. And we're doing Sideswipe's campaign, and today we're doing Chapter 1, entitled City of Steel. So, we're back in it again. I know I think I mentioned I wasn't going to do any more stuff for a while, but this just kind of hit my brain. I'm like, you know what, let's do it. Let's get Sideswipe out of the way. I tried doing him a long time ago, like months ago, and it just never worked out. So we're doing it again, and this time we're like, gonna try to get at least the third character out of, well, technically 5, but for my playthroughs it's gonna be 6. We'll get to there when we get there. Anyway, let's start off with the actual guide part of it. So the first 3 guys, I forgot the name of the enemies. You think I'd play this game long enough to remember all the enemy names, but I've forgotten. So you're fighting off the first 3 blue normal Decepticons. Nothing too strenuous. It's just the usual, dodging when it's appropriate. I have the damage dodge on, so if I take damage, I can still dodge and just basically negate damage if I got hit at the same time. And then you have the ground seekers, or ground strikers I think they were called, that pop out. This is where I save my ultimate for, just so I can do some decent bit of damage. So these guys are a bit tricky because their hammer swings are somewhat kind of hard to detect, I guess you could say. Not really detect, but like it's kind of hard to exactly know when to dodge perfectly, because sometimes you'll just dodge too early or too late and then get hit by it. But I'd say just your best bet is just to dodge when you think you're about to get hit, like you think that it's about to happen, or just do what I do normally and mash it. It's fine. So yeah, they do have names that pop up, so I'll have to remember everybody. I think these were Seekers, they said. Real quick, just throw this out there real fast. The kit I'm using is, of course, I'm keeping the loudspeaker on because that stuns enemies. It's really useful, incredibly useful. I'm not gonna go flashy for this guide in particular. I was gonna do that for Sideswipe, but I decided not to. We're just gonna play it normally. If I get repair kits, then so be it. I usually try not to have those in just in case. But we've done this playthrough 3 times now, so at this point, it's more so like for entertainment purposes. But if people do need an actual guide, then I'll still try to be here for that. So yeah, I'm running a weird kit because, like I said, I'm running loudspeakers for the stun. I'm running just normal, was it Starscream guns? I think they wore. It doesn't really matter. Just dual machine gun pistols is fine enough. Because Sideswipe's just, I feel like it fit him pretty well for that. Kind of like the speed character, so kind of want some speed weapons. Dual-wielded ice swords, which you'll see will come in handy. They will come in handy. You'd be surprised. I was surprised how actually useful they actually can be in terms of at least normal enemies, like regular small enemies. And then, of course, I'm running an Energon sword, just a single sword. I always recommend having at least loudspeaker, and if you can, something Energon related, so that way you can make sure that you do a decent amount of damage with the Energon thing, because it goes through enemies, it has a projectile attack to it, all that stuff. So, coming up in here, we got to deal with the kickbacks, and these guys are just absolutely obnoxious to deal with. So, I'd say, keep your ultimate for this. And by the way, out of all the ultimates I've definitely played with, I definitely think that ground soldiers. Okay, so these ones are ground soldiers. Yeah, I know, I've forgotten all their names, but yeah, this is where ice comes in handy for, because you can freeze enemies. But everything's going by so damn quick. With him, I think his ultimate is probably like one of the best, no doubt about it. Like Optimus is pretty good. Like Bumblebee is actually pretty good. Like they're all pretty good, but he definitely has a pretty nice one because you can aim in. Also, his ability, L2 ability, is a dodge mechanic. It's sort of like a dodge, evade, maybe even dash into. I guess you can just call it just a single dash. I think it does have iframes, I'm pretty sure. But it will not get used very often because since this is Devastation on Prime difficulty, it's not going to come as in handy for me personally, because I would rather just use something akin to just a normal regular dodge. That way I can guarantee I get, the prime time, I guess you could call it. The witch time for Transformers. I forgot exactly what it's called. They had a name for it. It's been so long since I played, so I could have gone up there and killed them normally because there was a way to get up there. I just decided for some strange reason to choose to use my ultimate. I recommend not doing that because Devastator's coming up right now. But if you're confident like I am in your skills with Devastator, it shouldn't be too big of a deal. And plus, Sideswipe does build up quite a lot of, his ultimate. I mean, technically everybody does, but he definitely has a lot of build up for it, which is pretty nice. I don't think that's a character thing. It just feels like that's what's going on. But, so yeah, so for Devastator, the weak point, of course, is the head. And that's where, you know, guns can kind of come into handy. But I'm just not going to bother with the weak point too much, because the best way to get to the weak point is basically this. You're just going to have to let him, you know, slam the ground and give you a mountain thing to kind of climb on, and then hit him that way. But, you know, attacking his legs is nothing to, you know, not recommend. Yeah, it's one of those things where, like, it's definitely viable enough. You'll be fine if you attack the legs, because you can always, once in a while, you know, kind of knock him over, and he'll kind of tumble around and get, I wouldn't say a stun, but a small enough of a stun type thing going on. Not a full stun, but just enough to where it's like you can get extra damage. And this is where Energon Weapon kind of comes in handy too, because I feel like maybe it does more damage. I don't know. It could be just a placebo thing I've had with this game for so long. Also, when you're using Sideswipe's ultimate, if you're going to use it on Devastator, which is, you know, of course, highly recommended, go for his head, because that way you can maximize the amount of damage you can do to him. So if you need to, just get at a distance, like get far enough away from him to avoid all that. But either way, even if you just attack him from the ground down, or whatever, you know, it doesn't really matter. Because it's just Devastator, and early Devastator without using drills is relatively simple enough. It's when you get to, like, the Phase 2 part, not in this particular fight, but in later fights, where the drills become much more... where he becomes a lot more dangerous, I feel. Because he uses the drills, I think, more often in the second fight. I don't know the specifics, whether or not he'll just use them whenever he feels like it, but I feel like he uses them way more later on. And drills are still dangerous. Like, even in that fight itself, they're still very dangerous, and I tend to kind of just mash the dodge button. I don't care about perfect dodge or if I get hit or not. It doesn't really matter to me as long as, you know, I get the kill in. I'm fine with everything, personally. And plus, you know, again, we've done this guy 3 times now, and I plan on doing it 6. For those that are kind of out of the loop, basically I started Optimus way back in the day, and that's my original Prime difficulty playthrough. And after that, you know, well, during that, I said I was going to do 6 playthroughs. I'm going to do, you know, all the main 5 characters, and then after that, the 6th playthrough would be a mix of all the characters together in one campaign. I'll switch them off every checkpoint, but real quick, so Megatron, just kind of go over him real fast. I'll show it off a lot better later on, but one thing you can use, I mean, of course, using the ultimate, you know, knock him into a wall, but the main thing that you kind of want to have on here is you want to use the loudspeaker to get a stun on him, because he can be stunned. Usually, I'm just going to say it, humanoid, normal humanoid type, you know, Decepticons can be stunned. And by humanoid, I mean more specifically like just the regular sized, basic, you know, it's really hard to describe, but non-big monster types, right? Like, you know, Minosaur and Devastator can't really be stunned with it, I don't think. I've never really found a way to do it, so I'm not really 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure you can't. But guys like these can. So in this fight, Optimus is going to kind of throw you off a little bit, so do be careful of that, because you will see a lot of flashing attacks, and typically it's because Optimus is busy fighting somebody else. So do keep in mind that Optimus is around helping you out, but, you know, try to keep your eye on all 3 of these guys the best you possibly can, because some of them might slip in and might, you know, get a hit on you. And that's where the Energon Sword kind of comes into play, big time, is because now it allows me to go through, you know, like, make attacks that go through multiple enemies at once, and it's really nice. Oh, Scrapnels, that's what they're called. So, yeah, kickback for the bigger ones, that's right. Sorry about that, I apologize. So for Scrapnels, they have a very annoying attack where they can kind of freeze you in time for like a small bit, and you gotta, you know, shake the controller to get out of it. And of course, these explosive gel things, which can be dodged. So if you see them on the ground, they're about to explode, then go for that dodge, you know, get that prime time active. And then, of course, for these assholes, the obvious, you know, time to dodge is definitely during the electrical attacks, because they don't attack as often, but, you know, whenever you do dodge the electrical attacks, it makes it much more easier to kind of control and kind of, you know, contain. Also, if an enemy is flying or an enemy is like mid-jump, which you'll see definitely later on, especially with the Constructicons, if you use the loudspeaker on them while they're in mid-jump, they won't necessarily get stunned, but they'll get knocked back down on the ground. So that's something that you can also use to your advantage. So popping up into here, you're going to be instantly ambushed. So just kind of keep in car form and just avoid these guys getting that attack. Unless you're really good and, again, really confident, which I kind of forgot they were here anyway, to be honest. But you could always go and try to stop the ambush by, you know, of course, dodging or whatever and going into, what's it called? Force mode? We'll just call it witch time. Fuck it. So you'll basically go into witch time and, yeah, what have you. Every once in a while, I'll use the dash mechanic that comes with Sideswipe. I still think that Bumblebee has the superior of all the abilities because he has you know, the ability to kind of jump over or even behind enemies to get a quote-unquote free attack. And it's extremely useful from Bumblebee. It's not that Sideswipe's dodge or dash is really terrible. It's just that I haven't really found much use for it outside of just like a small cool factor. I mean, I'm pretty sure there's a use for it. I'm just saying that for me personally, I'm not exactly of the ability to use it effectively. How about that? I think that makes more sense. Like, I'm not the best person to be using this stuff. Also, what's funny is, like, you'd think by this point, with the amount of times I've played, I have 81 hours clocked in on this game, according to PlayStation. I have 81 hours clocked in on the sumbitch. You would think by now, I could just speedrun the game. Which, I mean, to be fair, like, with Sideswipe, that's kind of what we're going to be doing anyway. I'm just going to be avoiding all the optional stuff. I'm not worried about anything. We're here to specifically beat... Sorry. We're here to specifically beat the mandatory stuff. Yeah, I just want to say real quick, I'm still kind of not necessarily under the weather anymore, but you might hear me get like some small sniffles or like my nose might sound a bit more stuffy, and that'll happen for a while, especially if I'm trying to like crank these out as fast as I can. So, just fair warning. You guys probably won't see these things uploaded for, you know, that fast, but I'm gonna try to record them as fast as I can. Anyway, so Megatron here, it's relatively straightforward. I don't know why he's being such a turd later on, because I knock him down to like his final bit of health, and he still for some reason just would not go. Which, I mean, I know why now. I think it's because of, you know, the track itself. Because right to the right there is when you have him on low health, he's going to go out that way. And you'll know he's on low health because, well, you can't do any more damage, and you pretty much got him to like his last pixel. So basically, his stuff is pretty much easy. You just dodge his shots. He does like 3 shots in a row. They have pretty easy timing to you know, watch out for. They're not anything I would say incredibly too hard. If he gets really bad, of course, you can use the loudspeaker to go for that stun to essentially stop him in mid-place and, you know, just get a nice free stun on him. When he's running away, when he's pretty much on his last pixel and he's ready to go, I'd say just try to stay behind as best as you can. Try not to dodge these, or try not to get witch time going, because it's just going to slow down the pace of the fight. Now, only do it if he's shooting directly at you and you don't want to get hit, because I think I got hit at one point, either earlier or pretty soon. But basically, you know, don't do what I did and just kind of dick around with him. There's no point. You're not getting anything. You're not getting anything out of this. So it's just one of those things of like, it'd be kind of funny just to bully him, but other than that, you know, doesn't really matter. But yeah, I got hit right there. But you can tell by the timing, they're pretty spread apart, and you can for the most part mash, dodge, and get away with it. Sometimes you can't mash dodge in this game, but sometimes you can. So Megatron's actual full fight right now. Usually he starts off with that thing where he kind of pushes you back, that wind turbine, but he didn't do that right now. And he also has that reflect move, which, also funny enough, he got knocked right in the fence. That reflect move basically is just a get off me tool. It doesn't really do anything else. It's not really a counter. It's just a big giant get off me type thing. And I believe you can dodge it, but still, just, you know, keep in mind that he might do it, especially if you're kind of aggressive like I am. But usually he'll probably go for not necessarily a counter attack, but after he does reflect, he'll probably throw out a kick or two. And that's when you want to dodge and just use loudspeaker to put him down. So when's the appropriate time to use loudspeaker? Well, technically, usually after a vehicle attack. And for Megatron's fight, as you can see, just a single vehicle attack like is enough for him. You can't usually get a second vehicle attack on him because some characters like Sideswipe and Bumblebee have 2 vehicle attacks in a row. And I think every once in a while Optimus does, but not very often. Also, I died in here, which doesn't really matter because, you know, I didn't really want to have an auto repair on anyway. It just, I picked it up on accident because I'm dumb. I try to avoid those, again, just for guide reasons. Just to get a checkpoint. Because I don't want people to be like, well, what the hell? Like, that's not fair. Why'd you have an auto repair in that fight? That's not fair. Like, I don't want that to happen. So, anyway, yeah. Yeah, Bone B and Sideswipe have dual attacks. And it looks like dual is just too much for Megatron. So, these guys, I'm going to apologize. I always forget their names. I'm not a huge Transformers guy. I'm mostly just a, Devastation type. But basically, the key trick with them is you want to focus on one, if not probably both. If you can get them both on a combo, that's great. But watch what I'm doing. Well, I think that's Hooker, right? That's his name? Like, unironically, I think that was his name. I'm not even trying to be funny, like I could have sworn. Basically, you want to focus on one at a time. Doesn't really matter who. Typically, I usually go for the more tankier enemies. Especially, you'll see later that there's one guy that's usually tanky in the group. But I try to go for one that's more tanky, but that doesn't always happen to the best. And the tanky ones usually have more slower attacks, which is fine and dandy. You can get better dodges in. But just keep in mind that these two, they usually kind of have, one fast, one slow. And it's really just a case of, pick your poison. And you'll be fighting... You'll be fighting them 3 times in total. Like, you'll be fighting all 6, but groups of 2. And the thing that I was trying to show off, but I couldn't really do a very good job at it, was I was trying to knock one in the air, and then after I get an air, vehicle attack or whatever, and do a vehicle attack follow-up, which will usually bring me toward him, I would usually try to use the loudspeaker to get the stun, and then after I get the stun, I would continue the combo again and try to keep that going. And if you start to drop, you could always use the dash to get yourself closer, which, that's one of the most effective things I could definitely say for it. Again, there might be, I'm sure there's people out there that are way better than I am. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I'm just saying that I'm pretty sure there's people out there that know way more about this type of stuff, at least for Sideswipe, than I do. And from my point of view, it seems like it's going to be a really useful tool to kind of keep you in the air if you needed it. So that's what I would probably end up using it more for. So next up, now we're going to fight these guys. And we're fighting a drill versus, of course, just like a more so normal puncher type character. The drill one is the more dangerous of the two because he not only shoots drills off screen, which I get lucky enough to dodge. It's not really a matter of skill for me on that one. It's just getting luck. But yeah, usually he'll come underground, and that's the thing you want him to do. This is why I would say, I'm probably going to take back what I said earlier. You don't have to focus on the tanky one here, because the tanky one is the drill guy. And for him, you either focus on him to get rid of his projectiles, or you keep him alive to hope he does the drill attack, the ground drill attack, which is something that's not necessarily a bad thing to kind of have around. Also, this sign right here got in the way, which sucks. The one thing that can't be broken, apparently. But, yeah, so pretty much the best thing I found for these guys is typically just using a combination of vehicle attacks and, of course, using like EN, like energy weapons and what have you, to get just that extra bit of damage and probably hit the other guy on the back. Specialized weapons such as like freeze swords, I don't think freeze these guys because they should count as bosses. So it shouldn't theoretically freeze them. I think it only ever really freezes like just normal mooks. But to be fair, that's coming from somebody who hasn't really exactly tested everything in this game. I just know what I know when I do what I do. And to be fair, the guide is mostly, at this point in time, the guide is mostly here as, hey, you guys want to watch me play Sideswipe now? Rather than like a full-on true guide. And the thing with characters in this game, too, is they have different abilities and different types of stuff, so technically having a guide for it's not a bad thing. It's just that a lot of the time, they don't really always help out. So, now we have, of course, our last two of the Constructicons, and I'm trying to do the same combo I did before, where I'm pretty much trying to get one in the air and trying to focus on one at a time, but of course that doesn't really work out for me. So, pretty much like, I'm kind of taking back what I said, like, just go for whoever. It doesn't matter, which one. technically I prefer leaving the Takey one kind of out last because usually they have somewhat slower attacks, or at least more predictable attacks. But, you know, cases like this, they'll attack you from behind. I go for a dodge, and then I just happen to be free. Also, yeah, now the combo finally works for once. That's basically what I was trying to go for. So, real quick, for those that might not know, you can actually get a free dodge. You can get Witch Time and a free dodge if you're in vehicle mode. If you're in vehicle attack. Sorry. If you're in vehicle mode, no, you're gonna get hit. You're gonna get knocked right in the face, and you're gonna take a lot of damage. But in a vehicle attack, if you're doing a vehicle attack and somebody goes for an attack on you, you will simply just parry off the entire damage and just be fine. You're not gonna get hit at all. You're completely invincible during that time, and you do some decent damage. And vehicle attacks are awesome. This game is just, it's every time I play it, I swear, like, I always just feel like that little sense of, like, both nostalgia and just a fantastic game. Nostalgia mainly because, like, I mean, I didn't really grow up with Transformers much. I mean, I had a few, but it wasn't anything, like, I was too big into. Nostalgia more so for Hardcorean because this is actually an older Hardcorean guide series that's still going on. This is the only project on Hardcorean outside of just regular guides that are still continued. I mean, yeah, I guess you could say God of War franchise or whatever, right? You could say some franchises here and there. But for the most part, yeah. This right here, this is the primo guide project that's been going on for so long. I think since maybe 2015, maybe 2016 at best. So I think the game came out like October 2015. But anyway, all right, so Devastator, he's got a new attack that he's going to use, and it's going to be that, you know, gunshot thing. I just got unlucky that he would use it first at a range, because he's a little dork. So, which, I mean, you know, of course, to my luck, I dodged it just at the right time. But yeah, that attack right there, that's a grab attack. You do not want to, that's something else I forgot to point out. You don't want to be, like, directly underneath both legs. You kind of want to be on the side of either one leg or the other, so that way the grab itself doesn't actually get you. You can dodge the grab, of course. If you're like me, you just, you know, mash dodge the entire time, and you'll probably be okay. But other than that, it's something I would recommend not being between his legs for. Sorry, my nose is still fucking acting up. It's irritating. But yeah, he's still the same fight as he was last time, except I think eventually once he gets halfway, you get that cutscene where he's just going to go straight into drill mode. So rather than, you know, waiting until like maybe like a third of his health or whatever, now it's going to be like half. And honestly, the drill fight is definitely one of the more harder fights of it because he's just straight up Oonga Boonga mode. Like there's no beating around the bush on this one. He's just going to start going in. And to be fair, since he's the first real true giant boss we have to deal with, he's not going to be too difficult to have to mess around with because those drill attacks are going to be easy enough to kind of mash your way for dodging through. In terms of like R2 dodging, not the L2 ability dodge. Or if you're playing an Xbox, then probably LT, R2, RT, I think, maybe, I don't know. Probably the shoulders. I'm not sure what they did for that one. It also sucks that this game got delisted, though, which is very upsetting. I love this game to death. If you find a copy, I recommend it. If you ever find a copy, it's definitely a fun game to play, for sure. But other than that, yeah, Devastator, again, just mash the hell out of dodge, and you'll pretty much be okay. I mean, that's most of Chapter 1 for you. But anyway, that's it for the first chapter. I'll see you guys in the next one, and as always, take care, everybody.